Driving through the backwoods of eastern Kentucky in the dead of night is the most terrifying thing I've ever done. Anyone who's ever been in the area knows exactly what I'm talking about. All the light from the moon, all the light from the stars is blocked out by the thick vegetation and hills, so it's pitch black. There's history in those hills, a lot of history, and this energy fills the place with this crazy bad vibe. It's like the very land itself is pissed at you, like it wants you dead. The roads aren't well traveled, and you'll be hard pressed to see a single car driving down them at night. Call service out there is, at least for me, spotty at best, non-existent at worst. And you'll pray to whatever you believe in that your car doesn't break down, knowing full well the folks who live in smattering across the hills are isolated, private people, knowing that they wouldn't be very happy seeing you wandering onto their property in the dead of night. Not too happy at all. It's what my mom calls bad country, one word. She always told me to avoid the area if I could, saying that I'd likely be murdered or worse out there. And I've heard the stories too. Stories about people getting out of their cars to help a stranded motorist, only to be ambushed, robbed, kidnapped, and or murdered. Stories about strange lights, ghost killers, vanishing hitchhikers, crazy inbred hillbilly families. There are said to be hundreds of unreported deaths out there. People just vanishing off the face of the earth, never to be seen again. I've always avoided driving through those hills. One night I found myself driving straight down KY 52 South instead of I-75 South. Straight into those hills. Straight into their darkness. Around midnight, I got a message from my mom that my dad had been taken to the hospital and his condition was serious. I immediately jumped out of bed and got into my car, despite my mom telling me to wait until morning to drive down. I lived up in Richmond at the time, while my parents were down in Hazard. It's a little under a 2-hour drive via I-75 South, and a little over 2 if you're taking KY 52 South. That night, though, I-75 South was closed due to overnight bridge reconstruction, so I had to take KY 52 southbound, and it goes through some pretty gnarly, bad country. I figured nothing would happen, though. It'd be pretty smooth, yet anxiety-ridden, 2-hour-ish trip. But there was this dread I couldn't shake boiling up in my gut, urging me to wait until morning, but I didn't. I couldn't. I had to see my dad. I got from Richmond to Irvine just fine, driving the winding road and hilly terrain with ease, going faster than the speed limit. It was just Irvine to Jackson that things took a turn for the worst. First off, it was dark. Really fucking dark. Even with the lights on. They still only barely lit up the surrounding area. The constantly curving roads didn't help either. I found myself slowing down, having to navigate through the dark, around the switchbacks and turns, inclines and depressions, hoping to God I didn't run off the road or hit an oncoming vehicle. And the dread was at the forefront of everything now. Sure, it could have been exasperated by worrying for my dad, but there's something in those hills, something evil, and I was really fucking afraid. The radio was dipping in and out, so I put in a CD and tried to drown the fear with music. After the first song, I turned off the stereo completely and drove in silence, all my senses on high alert. It felt wrong. It felt like I was being watched. Every so often, I would see a light flash in the woods, like a campfire but brighter. I swear at one point between Crystal and Beattyville, there was this pale, hairless, huge humanoid running after my car next to the road. Swear I saw it in the rearview mirror. It disappeared into the darkness in the trees when I braked and spun around in my seat. 30 minutes out of Beattyville, I saw a kid. He was wearing a yellow shirt, blue shorts, and a red jacket, hood up. Colors that reminded me of Superman. He wasn't wearing shoes. That bothered me. I flicked my brights down to their normal strength and slowed to a crawl, wondering what the hell the kid was doing out here. He looked under 10. I made sure my doors were locked, cracked my window, and asked him if he was alright as I rolled towards him. He didn't respond. I glanced down at my phone. No service. Shit. I asked him if he was okay again, and he looked up at me quickly, making his hood fall down. He was crying. I slowed to a stop, and he immediately ran over, sticking his dirty fingers into the crack of my window, pounding on the door. He was screaming something about how they were hunting him, and how they were going to let the monster eat him, and how they were watching us now, waiting just beyond the darkness. At this point, I was seriously freaking out, and I might have been screaming too. I tried to roll my window back up while trying not to hurt the kid, but he wouldn't release his grip on my window. I thought he was trying to break it. A bright light flashed onto us, and the kid screamed even louder, let go of my car, and began running down the road towards Beattyville. I'm ashamed to say I took off. I was afraid I was going to die and become another statistic in these hills. In my rearview mirror, I watched what looked like 3 men in hooded robes run onto the road. The spotlight one of them was holding was trained onto my car and hit the mirror at an angle that blinded me. But it looked like the other 2 were going after the kid. I blinked, looked back towards the road, speeding like a bat out of hell. I pulled off in Jackson and drove straight to the police station. 2 detectives and an FBI agent who happened to be in town working with a liaison listened to me with grave faces. When I finished, the FBI agent thanked me, told me that the kid had gone missing the day before from a Bible camp near the Kentucky River. He said that's why he was in town in the first place. Apparently, the kid and his friends were out playing hide-and-seek in the woods in broad daylight when he just disappeared. He was wearing yellow, blue, and red, like Superman. The strange thing is, his footsteps just stopped. And his shoes were still there. It's like he had been lifted off the ground by air. It was weird. 6 cop cars and twice as many cops, the agent, and a search and rescue team were dispatched to the area within minutes after reporting what I'd seen. I drove to a local diner and ended up staying in Jackson until morning, making a 40-ish minute drive down to Hazard after the sun rose. After hearing why it took me so long to get down there, my mom was beside herself in panic, but I was glad I was okay. Telling me I did what I had to survive, that I was brave and wasn't a coward. My dad ended up making a full recovery. If you're wondering if I do feel like a fucking coward, if I regret not letting the kid in my car, the answer is a resounding yes. I do, and I am. It haunts me to this day, but I don't know what would have happened if I stayed out there any longer. And I don't know if either of us would have made it out alive. No trace of the kid was ever found.